Hello everybody and welcome back to the next episode of the series. And what we're going to be doing in this episode is something pretty unique, and that is talking about how ChatGPT can accelerate the way that you develop games. And this is really incredible. I started learning game development about 2 years ago. Before then I was just kind of exploring it, but this is something that I really wish would have been available when I was learning how to make games. And it is a huge privilege to use this now. And I really want to demonstrate what this tool is capable of because I think a lot of people don't quite understand everything that it can do. And so we'll be showing that off here. So I'm using ChatGPT. I have access to ChatGPT 4, but you can do the same thing with 3.5. And we're going to be asking it to write code for us, which it's actually very good at. But there's a couple techniques that you need to know to get it to sort of help you in the most efficient way possible. So, for example, let's say I decided that I want to implement a double jump into my game, right? But let's say that I'm not sure how to do that. If I was new to game development, it might be confusing, like how do I set up a Boolean or a true-false variable to basically determine whether or not I've double jumped or not already. So what we can do is we can actually just hit Control A and Control C to highlight our entire text and copy it. And what I'll do is I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll just say, I'm developing a platformer, we'll say a 2D platformer in Godot 4.0. Technically 4.1, but it's the same thing. I would like to implement a double jump feature. The code below is the code for my main character. Oops. Please modify it so that the character can double jump. And what I'll do is I'll just paste the entire code into it. And ChatGPT will already do it. So it talks about how you're going to need to introduce a new variable, right, which decreases by 1 each time the player jumps. And so it's going to create a variable for a double jump. And so it takes you through the idea of how to do it, and then it shows you the actual code. So here it's showing you what you're going to want to do is, in the section we have our jump, so this is my code, right? Like you watched me write this, and it's showing you what you need to add. So it's creating a new variable called jumps left, and every time you jump, it decreases it by 1. And then it says anywhere you are on the floor, reset the jumps left to 2. And so now you can jump even if the character is not on the air, and if jumps left is greater than 0. So you can take this and you can modify your code, and I know for a fact that this will work. And you can just straight up implement new ideas into your game by having it do sort of the brute work of figuring out how to exactly implement them. And so this is incredible. And what's also great about ChatGPT is that it not only can code new ideas for you and new functions, but it can also do complex tasks and help you navigate the engine itself. So let's say, for example, my pixel art is blurry. How can I fix that? And what it will do is tell you. So it tells you, make sure you're using the nearest neighbor scaling method, which is exactly what we changed. So for example, you could, so like that was the solution we needed at the beginning of this series. So we could ask it how to do that, and it would tell you what series of buttons you need to click in Godot to get there. And that is really incredible. So what you're going to be doing in this episode is I want you to implement new features. I want you to implement at least 2 new features into your game by talking with ChatGPT and having it come up with ways to do it. Now, there are some things it can do and some things it cannot do. So the more straightforward and direct your task is, the more likely it is you'll get a positive result. But what can happen is that sometimes it will say how to do something, but it'll be just slightly off, or maybe it's not clear enough. And so what you need to do is you need to talk with it and basically pretend it's a real person and have a back and forth discussion. If you get an error message, you can paste that error message into ChatGPT and say, this is what I got, and it'll adapt and it'll say, oh, then you must need to do blank. So try to implement 2 new features into your game with this system, and shoot for stuff that's somewhat simple. But what's also great is that, let's say you're confused about something, it can just explain it. So for example, something we haven't discussed in this course is collision layers for physics. So for example, I want my character to be able to land on a platform that enemies cannot land on. How do I do this? And so it can explain concepts to you. So for example, layers and collision mass are how you control this. So this is giving instructions for Unity. So sometimes it forgets what system you're using. So it's probably going to go on to explain it in Godot as well. But so what you might need to do is you might need to go back and say in Godot 4.0. And so this is exactly what you need. So in my opinion, the days of Googling and digging through Stack Exchange and posting your issues in Discords, that is going to start fading away, because this is really incredible at tailoring your issue to your solution. So basically what this is explaining is exactly the right thing. You need to define physics layers. You need to assign a different one to a player and to the enemy, and then make a platform that is masked to only interact with the player, so that way the enemies can fall through. But what's also interesting is there's another AI called Claude. Not a lot of people know about this one. I guess Claude 2 is coming out. But basically, Claude is another version of a large language model, and you can use it in similar ways to ChatGPT. And so you might try using Claude and seeing if it performs a little bit better as well. But just to note, this video is being recorded on December 18th of 2023, and so by the time you're watching this, there's a high chance that maybe Google's Bard AI has gotten really, really good at coding. So play around with these different AIs, but you'll notice that they're quite powerful, especially for beginners. They can explain basic concepts very well, very quickly, and exactly what you need. Now, pitfalls to note. AI is very confident, but it's not always right. And so there have been times when it has generated me code that doesn't quite work. It's going to mess up, and when that happens, you just need to tell it that it happens, and it will try and find a solution for you. And if that doesn't work, then go back to the dark ages and use Google, and maybe post your issues in the Discord. But ChatGPT is incredible. You can do so much with it, and I think if you're getting into indie game development, there has never been a better time in human history. Not only do you have free open source engines that do a lot of the boring stuff for you, like drawing things on the screen, collision, all that stuff is taken away. You get to work with the more fun things of choosing what sound effect you want for your character. But also you have AI at your fingertips that can answer your questions and generate images for you. So if nothing else, play around with this and try it out, because this is a real privilege to live in this timeline where this is the kind of stuff you can do. And just to close it out with one last sort of anecdote, I'm very familiar with Godot. I've made so many games in Godot, but one thing I'm still learning is shaders, something I know very little about. And shader code is interesting because it's very separate from Godot code. It's functionally a different language, and so I know nothing about it. But I was making a game where I needed swaying grass, and so I just asked it to write shader code for me, and it did exactly what I wanted. So I didn't have to spend time, fully understanding how every minute thing works. I was able to get it to make me an example of what I needed. And then I was able to break down that code and actually have it explain it to me line by line what it was doing. And it helped me understand my first line of code, of shader code, in a practical example that I needed and that I was using. So, anyone at any level of skill can use this and really benefit from it. So try it out. All right. That's it. I'll shut up now. Thank you all for watching, and see you in the next video.